Hello, can I have your attention, please? Now, our panel subject is direct investment post-COVID-19, as we need to revive the economy eventually. So I would like to invite on stage Professor Dr. Mehmet Şükrü Tekbaş, member of the Honorary Board of ICP Turkey, as our moderator.
Hello. After a very successful debate about women's performance, it will be difficult for us. We will be discussing with four distinguished panelists foreign direct investment post-COVID-19. In our panel, we have Mr. Robin Brooks from Washington, and he will be joining us online. We have Mr. Süleyman Şanlı, he is here with us. We have Korhan Kurdoğlu, he will be joining us online. And we have another panelist, Nadal El-Cehar, Mr. Nadal El-Cehar, he is with us as well. Well, our topic is, as I said, foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment is a crucial topic. It is very important for countries. However, we are experiencing difficult periods, and with COVID-19, it has been even more difficult. It added additional risk and uncertainty on top of the existing ones. With our members, we will be discussing these issues. Please join me, Mr. Nadal El-Cehar. Mr. Süleyman Şanlı, please join us. And Mr. Robin Brooks is joining us online.
Very nice to be with you. Thanks for having me.
And Mr. Korhan Kurdoğlu, are you there? Yes. Okay. Okay, good to see all of you. And in Washington, it is 7 a.m. Robin, good to see you. And Robin Brooks is Chief Economics in Institute of International Finance at Washington. Mr. Süleyman Şanlı is Vice Chairman, TABA, American Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Nadal El-Cehar is former Minister of Finance from Syria. And Mr. Korhan Kurdoğlu is founding partner and Chief Executive Officer, TFI Tab Food Investment Turkey. We will start with Mr. Robin Brooks. Robin, give us the starting point. How was it before COVID? The existing circumstances, the risk and uncertainty, the role of COVID on top of it, and then with the global perspective, we will come to the region and Turkey, and at the end, you will give us some guidelines as homework what we should do. We will start with you, Robin. You have about, in the first round, 8 minutes, then you will have additional time for the second round. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be with all of you. The Institute of International Finance, where I work and where I'm the chief economist.
Robin, can you make it louder, please?
I will speak louder. Can you hear?
Duyabiliyor musunuz? Can you hear?
So the
maybe here our technical people can do something. Ses bize çok az geliyor. Ben duyamıyorum.
Well, I
Thank you.
cannot hear very well.
Please start again.
So I'm very pleased to be with all of you. I'm the chief economist at the Institute of International Finance in Washington, D.C. We are very proud of our Turkish membership. We have many Turkish financial institutions that are part of the IIF, and they've always been historically very important for the Institute of International Finance, and we're very, very grateful to have them, and we're focused on working hard for them. So on your question, let me just paint the picture a little bit before COVID, and then obviously what has happened in the crisis. In the run-up to COVID, the global economy was doing quite well. We were roughly 10 years after the global financial crisis. We were gradually leaving behind some of the damage that had been caused by the crisis in 2008, 2009. In particular, in the advanced economies, in the United States and in Europe, employment was starting to look quite strong. And so the picture generally was improving, but there were some trouble spots. And in particular, some of the trouble spots were in emerging markets, because unlike advanced economies, growth in emerging markets was steadily weakening. And so what we had seen in the early stages after the global financial crisis in 2009, 2010, 2011, growth in many emerging markets was 5-6%. But in the run-up to the global financial crisis, so in 2017, 2018, 2019, growth was down to levels that are similar to advanced economies, so 2-3%. And that's a big problem for emerging markets, because emerging markets are always a growth proposition. Investors want to invest in emerging markets because there is a growth premium, because ultimately you benefit from investing in a high growth location. And so that caused great difficulty for emerging markets. And we saw in 2018 a fairly big crisis across emerging markets. It affected Turkey, it affected Argentina, but it affected many other countries as well, Brazil, Mexico, and so forth. And then we saw similar ructions again in 2019. And so the state going into COVID, into the virus, was one of fairly significant vulnerability. Emerging markets had growth crisis. Investors were having trouble investing in emerging markets. And so the sentiment was weak. And so we saw early last year, when the virus first happened, very large capital outflows and very large depreciations from emerging markets. Turkey was no exception to that. The Turkish lira also weakened in that setting, and foreign exchange reserves were also lost. And so much like other emerging markets, COVID hit Turkey quite hard. The outlook going forward now for Turkey hopefully is better. We are hopeful that vaccination progress will be good in Europe, especially now as we go into the second quarter of 2021. We are hopeful that vaccinations in the rest of the world also will start picking up. In the United States, they are picking up quite significantly. We're vaccinating more than 2 million people a day here in the United States. And so the hope is for Turkey in 2021 to have a good year, a year of stability, a year where growth is relatively strong. My wonderful Turkey economist is forecasting growth around 5%. My wonderful Turkey economist is called Urash Ulku. We have a current account deficit around 3%. And we think the fair value for the Turkish lira is around 7.5%. We think policy will play an important role in all of that. In the past 3-4 years, there has been too much dependence on credit as a vehicle for growth. We think that's changing now in a better direction. And ultimately, foreign direct investment, which is a key focus of this panel, will be a key vehicle for growth. Turkey is hugely innovative. It has a young and dynamic workforce. And so attracting foreign investment to Turkey will be key to take Turkey away from credit-led growth to foreign direct investment-led growth. So maybe I'll stop there and we can go on with the rest of the panel.
Okay, we thank you. You mentioned the risk, the periods between 2008 and the current period, and CDS or risk premium coming with the pandemic, and you mentioned the differences between emerging markets and developed economies, and then you came to Turkey and put in some advantages and some advantages for Turkish economy. To Turkish economy, we will come back again. Now, we have Süleyman Şanlı. He is the Vice Chairman, Turkish American Chamber of Commerce. He will be looking at the issue from both sides and direct investments into Turkey. Süleyman Bey, the floor is yours. Türkçe veya İngilizce tercihinizi yapabilir.
Mr. Süleyman, the floor is yours. You can speak in Turkish or English. So, you can look at it from the perspective of American Chamber of Commerce, but also from the perspective of the business person that you are. So for the first round, you have about 8 minutes. So the floor is yours, Mr.
Mikrofon açık mı? Mikrofonunuz açık değil. Şimdi açıldı.
Your phone was muted. Now it's open. We are the representatives of the real sector. So prior to the pandemic, the commerce between the commerce system prior to the COVID and now, there is a paradigm shift. So the deepening global commerce prior to the pandemic was based on the cheap production of China and also supplies that were available to the rest of the world from those cheap products in China. Now this has been disrupted because there is a huge deficit of foreign commerce. So from the 1970s onwards, all the foreign investors were directed towards China, and they were actually looking for alternative suppliers throughout that period. So in the league where we can count Turkey, Indonesia, India, South Korea, Thailand, and Malaysia are among the trustworthy suppliers. But throughout the pandemic, this has become a crisis of providing supplies throughout, especially within the unhealthy developments in the goods market also are a sign of this. So when we take into consideration the interdependence of the world economies, we see that Turkey is the east of the west, west of the east. So it's both a country that is eastern and western at the same time. So there it needs to benefit from the richness that this position is allowing it. So it should be like a reference center or a commerce center between East and West. So at the points where we strengthen this, Turkey has quite a bit of a potential for attracting foreign investors, especially for the strategic industries such as the defense industry and industries similar to that. So we see that the priority of the strategic industries have changed. For example, agriculture, logistics, and the chemistry industry and health industry are coming to the fore in terms of becoming more strategic sectors. We can see how they are advancing in this list. So it's important for Turkey to attract foreign investors due to its positioning between these two worlds, East and West. So the loss of value in Turkish lira is basically a factor that increases export in Turkey. So in the last quarter, Turkey had a record in export, which is we finished with $50 million. But in the export story, there is $160 billion, $180 billion. Turkey is stuck between these two numbers. And the reason is that the markets where Turkey is mostly involved with are the markets which are 2 to 4 hours of flight distance, and which means that Turkey is doing business with only 1/3 of the whole global potential. Whereas in markets further than that, Turkey is not becoming really active. But Turkey has a really educated population. And it employs also women. So women are an important part of the employment scheme. So it's now this potential is not actually on a par with the capacity that we have just mentioned. So there should be logistic centers abroad that give support to this. So through time, we shall have more opportunities abroad in the countries further than Turkey to have commerce and activities. Thank you very much, Mr. Süleyman. So he talked about the risks prior to the pandemic, and amongst those, there was this dialogue or loss of dialogue between China and the US and the problems that this has created. And as an important risk that used to exist prior to the pandemic, but with the pandemic it increased. And he didn't mention that, but Brexit also is a risk that we're facing in global trade. And then we shall get back to the issue of Turkish economy. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Korhan, the floor is yours. You are representing an organization that does export from Turkey to the abroad. How is your take on this issue? I congratulate everyone who has prepared this organization and this panel, and sorry for being with you online. Myself, as an investor, and as an investor who has invested in China, I have certain experiences that I'd like to share with you. And I have been I am the head of the Turkish Business Council in DEİK. And we have, in terms of foreign investment in a country like China, we are active. So our field of activity is fast food restaurants. And we are representing 6 brands in Turkey, and we do and as a matter of knowing the dynamic of this business so well, we wanted to open our company to the markets abroad. And how could an American brand be represented by a Turkish operator in China. Let me tell you the story behind that and the experience we had in relation to that. And what did COVID pandemic bring? Also, what kind of an impact shall the COVID pandemic have on the business world? So this globalization story, we started when you compare China, a country such as China, to Turkey. It has 15 times more population. It is more a continent rather than a country. So we were invited by the brand who we represent. And then they were thinking that we could have the same success we had in Turkey also there in China. So when we went to China in the year 2012, it was more mysterious. It wasn't very open to the outside world, and certain business, fearful business stories were like dominating the realm. But when we went to China, we saw that there was the conditions were suitable for us to do good business, because when you look at it demographically, there is an increasing population, and there is more and more employees every time. Income is increasing every time, and the urbanization is growing too. So a new segment means millions of more people, expectation of a new life standard year by year, more digital experiences, and a more value-oriented organization, and a more value-oriented dynamics of population is the case in China, and we decided that this is a suitable condition for us to do business. So in the year 2012, we started our activities. We are leading about 1,300 restaurants in 190 cities. I myself traveled to China so many times, and I have been staying at least a week long in all of the 8 visits that I have done. Of course, that was prior to COVID. Now we do all our meetings online. But as a Turkish business person who knows the business well, globally in the world, if you plan it correctly and if you organize well, you have quite a bit of success, chance to succeed. And also, we can work in a friendly manner with the Chinese business people. We have reached a certain frequency with them. China is digitalizing so fast, and it is the foremost technological country in the world. And we have seen it with our own experience. When we went there in 2012, all of the transactions were done with cash. There were no credits at all. But now, in the restaurants, almost no cash is the case. All of the payments are done digitally with the QR code and through e-commerce platforms. Our package delivery service has increased to 50%. So that kind of a transformation has happened in such a short time. This is what China went through in such a short time. And we see the following. With the COVID, just like in the whole world, in Turkey also, this digitalization and technology has more and more importance in the business that we do. And in the fields of delivery and package services, this is becoming more and more important. And all of the experiences that we have had in this field, there are very important opportunities to bring that experience to Turkey. And Turkey will have to give a lot of significance to those digital platforms in the near future, both from the public side and from the private sector. Much more significance needs to be given, because we see that this way of doing business will remain in this world. So the key to success is through those new forms. this experience that we have had in China is also good for the business world, because a Turkish business person can see him or herself more as a more global entity, global identity, because that's how the business world is developing in the whole world. And also the roads, highways that lead that connect those points are very important for Turkey. I think Turkey is in the heart of those ways. So I believe that Turkey can attract many more Chinese investment. And I think there is lots of opportunity for cooperation in this field. So thank you very much. We see how a Turkish investor has experienced China and doing business in China. So this pandemic has a lot of positive impact on digitalization, and you have been among those who implemented those. Now, in a short while, we can talk about how Chinese investment can come to Turkey. On my left, there is Mr. Nadal Eljar.
And as a neighboring country, being in the region, we will look at the issue from his point of view in the regional aspects. The floor is yours, Mr. Eljar.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's my pleasure to be in here and participate in this session. I would like to begin giving some expressions that we should get used to after COVID, during COVID as well. I think the whole world is going through some kind of repositioning. Everything is changing, communications, every aspect of our life today is taking new shape and form. And that new shape and form will differ from country to country, depending on the resources available, depending on the geopolitical situation of that country or those countries, and also depending on the available tools that those countries have at their disposal to do this repositioning and adjust to this new world order. What comes to mind when we talk about foreign investment and when we talk about finance in general, that today we started seeing new tools and means of accomplishing transactions or finishing transactions, doing deals, striking deals and signing even contracts. Now, the first question that comes to my mind, this repositioning or this change that we're witnessing today, how sustainable it is after COVID? This is a very important question. Some of the things that we do today during COVID, we do it in a mandatory way. They are compulsory today for us to do things in a certain way. Now, when COVID is over and we take our mask off, when we go on the streets, are we going to go back to the good old days and do things like we used to do? Or those changes that have taken place today are sustainable and we have got used to them and they will be with us for time to come? This is a very, I think, important question that there is no definite answer for, but that question by itself necessitates that countries should be ready to have more elasticity, flexibility than before. And this flexibility is not easy now when we are going through COVID-19 for countries. And today we lost so many characteristics of the market that we used to, and they are not like before. For example, we mentioned today the foreign currency issue, the Turkish lira, why the Turkish lira went down or went up, and all those fluctuations. I think Turkey is an exporting country, that's for sure, and it has done a wonderful job to its neighbors and to the whole world in exporting good goods and quality goods. But today, I believe the elasticity of export to foreign currency prices is completely different from that before COVID. Shipping has changed, insurance has changed, banking has changed. We have new electronic tools and equipments in the market. And I think this is becoming like a puzzle we have to solve every day of our life. So, but Having said that, Turkey will always be a source of economic wealth. That's for sure. We witnessed that for the last 25, 30 years. I've been coming to Turkey for a long time. When I used to work on Wall Street, I did so much work here with the Bursa here in Istanbul, and I'm pretty much familiar with the steps that Turkey has gone through to achieve what it achieved today. Now, what happened in terms of infrastructure in Turkey, I think, is completely stable. And I think I can say it freely and clearly and comfortably. Turkey is now competing with the most important, industrial countries in the world. I think the competition level is very close. They're almost moving head to head, which is something to be comfortable with, that you have the infrastructure. And thank you. So that infrastructure is there. What we need to do is to work on the peripherals of that infrastructure. We have to be very fast today in Turkey to adapt to the new technology, to adapt, most importantly, to the new mentality that has, shown up in this COVID era. And I think Turkey has all the factors. It's just what you have to do, I think, today is to regroup and empower those factors to come up with the validity of the tools and instruments that will always put Turkey ahead and will put it in the leadership role. I'm finished.
And Mr. Elcer, thank you. You mentioned the elasticity of Turkish lira has changed in terms of Turkish export goods. And you said Turkey has enough sources for economic wealth and infrastructure is here. The only problem is Turkey should adapt itself to new technology. And we will be talking about in detail in the second round how it can be done. Robin, coming back to you, Turkish FDI into Turkey in 2004 or 5, and in that era were rather high. However, later we have experienced a volatility and it slowed down in recent years. And on top of that, COVID-19 came. Now, what should Turkey do and how could it be done, including new technology, as Mr. Elcer mentioned? What is your advice? You know Turkish economy quite well, you know the region quite well, and you have been watching what is going on in Turkey and the relationship between Turkish lira and interest rates in United States, and the floor is yours. What should we do to overcome with the recent problems?
Well, I can tell you my opinion. Thanks for asking me. It's a good question. You're quite right in the characterization that you gave. Foreign direct investment to Turkey has been trending down. Generally like foreign direct investment to emerging markets because it's a more stable, predictable form of financing for the current account deficit. And of course, it can be good for growth if there's foreign investment that also brings knowledge transfer and so forth. I think, let me say two things on this. First of all, there are some things that you should not do, and then there are some things that you should do. And both are difficult. So I think they're non-trivial. And let me also say that the decline in FDI is something that is not just about Turkey, it's affecting all emerging markets. So it doesn't necessarily say anything about Turkey one way or the other. It's a global phenomenon. So what should you not do? With FDI declining, of course, that makes the picture more challenging for growth. And so in many countries, not just Turkey, there is a temptation to do a quick fix and to look for quick solutions to get growth up. That's something that you should not do. Why? Because the kinds of things that have been done, a reliance on credit in Turkey, has boosted domestic consumption, that has boosted imports, that boosts the current account deficit. And we saw in 2018, we saw again in 2019, and then in 2020 that this makes things very difficult for the lira. So my preference would be, my recommendation would be to focus away from short-term growth. What you should do is focus on the predictability of the rule of law, the transparency in international capital markets, the reforms in your labor markets. All these things sound very boring, and they are difficult to do, but they will bring foreign direct investment. Turkey has a huge geographic advantage. It sits on the doorsteps of Europe. It is in Europe. And that means a big export market is accessible to Turkey much easier than the rest of the world. And so for Turkey, that's a huge positive and something that with a predictable environment for foreign direct investment will be easy to exploit. Let me close by saying something really positive and something that I'm very excited about for Turkey in 2021. We spend a lot of time looking at exports, the behavior of exports, and how they are tracking. And there are two economies where exports in emerging markets are doing really, really well. They are Mexico, which borders the United States and benefits uniquely from US fiscal stimulus, and they are Turkey. And so in both cases, in Mexico and in Turkey, you have a huge geographic advantage. You sit next to rich regions that can spend money. And so in a way, for Turkey, there is some really low-hanging fruit. All you have to do is make conditions predictable and transparent for foreign investors, and they will come. Let me stop there.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. You mentioned Turkey should do something and should not do something. Turkey should avoid quick solutions. However, Turkey should work on some homework. This is what the government is preparing, a reform package the government is preparing. And you have mentioned transparency as a key issue. Law is again another key issue. Turkey should do something in that area, and freedom of thought maybe. You have mentioned labor market, and with Mexico, Turkey have great advantage in geographical advantage you have mentioned, and the predictability is a keyword, as you have said. Thank you, and maybe you may have something to add at a later stage. Süleyman Bey, neler eklemek istersiniz?
Yeni dönemde, özellikle pandemi sonrası dönemde,
In the new era, particularly after the COVID,
pandemi sonrası yeni dünya düzeninde
in the new world order,
daha öne çıktı. Ülkelerin
one thing stands out.
tedariksel
The countries have now more dependency in terms of supply because they have seen shocks in their supply. Even the countries, the advanced economies in Europe, saw crisis where they couldn't address the needs, urgent needs of their own citizens. So they started discussing their values, and some priorities were imposed by some countries in the past. And this showed that why these impositions were wrong and why Brexit was a good process, why the UK was right in demanding Brexit, because the business liberalism was standing out in normal times. But when there is a crisis, the Europe focused on their own economies and they strengthened their borders. And even Europe could not help its neighbors. It was Turkey, China, and other countries that came to help some European countries. So definitions are changing around the world. The existence of some countries was also questioned. But after the trade wars, during the restitution of the system, the World Economic Forum, NATO, and the other organizations should be renovated because after World War II, these international organizations were focused only on security in their essence, or they were focused only on economic and cultural cooperation like the European Union. However, there is a common threat against the humanity, which is when there is a risk against the humanity, we saw that these organizations were helpless. So, of course, manufacturing and trade were very important as we understood during this process, particularly manufacturing. Now, the description of manufacturing is changing, particularly after 9/11. We have been surrounded by a passive belt. So there are these failed states who cannot respond to the needs of their own citizens. Turkey was a diamond in this area, and this is economic power, population, and manufacturing power is what make Turkey a strong country. So we have to give more value to value-added manufacturing. In the long term, we ignored many things. We focused on materialism. For example, we only focused on brand value in exports. Turkey sells at about $1.29 in exports, which is quite low. So Turkey has to increase its exports. Successful countries based on manufacturing can have export surplus, foreign trade surplus, only if the prices are at $3 or $4. So we should be exporting per kilo. So, and for a long time, we did not value the export of services. For example, Turkish Airlines is the most important brand in Turkey, but Airbus and Boeing, these are the aircrafts used by the Turkish Airlines. So Turkish Airlines has an international value of about $5 billion. And all of this capital has been paid or will be paid from the equities of Turkey. But there are some young Turkish entrepreneurs who developed a game company together, and it was sold for more than $1 billion to a US company. So in addition to manufacturing, Turkey should focus on other industries that it does good at. For example, we have to revive some of the industries that we have forgotten. Agriculture, for example, has become more important in the 21st century. Now, a strong country is equal to a self-sufficient country. And when necessary, in emergencies, they have to help allies, neighbors, and other countries. And you have to do the pandemic diplomacy using your manufacturing power. So the manufacturing power of Turkey is standing out again, and it draws foreign direct investment. All around the world, countries look for foreign direct investment. Even the United States, they call for US select, and every state tries to invite foreign investors. And they also try to attract know-how, manufacturing power, and experience. And Turkey gained an advantage in attracting foreign direct investment at the end of 80s, and it has a new opportunity to do that once again. We are living in a beehive, but we are honeybees, and we are manufacturing honey in the local economy. So we have shown this with our SMEs. And in the last 10, 15 years in Anatolia, we have seen very important export models and industrial companies. We have seen very successful models. And we have to improve this in the future. There are a few barriers ahead of us. If we have time, I would like to summarize those. To address a big market, we need to solve the problem of scaling. So in our territory, Turkey has a reach to a very vast territory. We have to use that with Turkmenistan, with Egypt, with Azerbaijan. We have to work with Syria, and we have to prosper together. We can overcome the problem of scaling like this and the problem of know-how. Every day we start new R&D centers, we have new young entrepreneurs, and with them we will overcome this problem. We have to include the universities in this process, not only the academics, but also the vocational high schools. We have to remember the importance of vocational high schools. Thank you very much. You discussed very important issues. Yes, there was a huge crisis of supply all around the world. Even the face masks. Nobody could get their hands on face masks in the beginning of the pandemic. So, and the problem of Brexit. Brexit showed the world that the EU has not solved some of its problems. And Italy did not get any help from Europe. It only received help from China. And a strong country, yes, the definition of a strong country is very important. A strong country is a self-sufficient country. And you very accurately reminded us of that Turkish gaming company. And we also know that Amazon and Apple have a big market value that has surpassed General Motors, which has a very long history because we are in the age of technology now. Of course, there are some barriers. We have to overcome them together. The problem of scale is a major problem, but I think Turkey can overcome this by giving more importance to agriculture and working closely with the other countries in the region, and know-how and R&D. With techno parks, we can also improve ourselves in those areas. Korhan Bey, we will continue with you. What would you like to add? How can we attract investment from China or other countries to Turkey? Yes, Süleyman and Robin gave us a very good summary actually. Turkey has a very good geopolitical location, a young population. It's a very attractive market, and the global markets, global companies are interested in this region. There is a big money that they are offering to markets. And if we do our homework, I think foreign investment can come to Turkey. Particularly Asia is a rising market. China is a very big country and they have started a big opening initiative, and Turkey has drawn investment from dozens of Chinese companies. They invested in 2 banks, they invested in Netash and other companies. So maybe we can improve our infrastructure in a way that would facilitate their work. Using the technology, if we fill in our gaps, if we create the necessary platforms, I think we can attract big investments to the Turkish economy. And I think the Turkish economy will thus continue to grow rapidly and remain competitive. Thank you.
Robin, do you have anything to add? We have maybe 1 or 2 more minutes if you have something to add.
No, I really appreciated being part of this panel. It's great to see all of you. I only wish I were in Istanbul with all of you. Stay safe.
We thank you. Söz almak isteyen, bir soru sormak isteyen var mı?
Any questions or comments?
To all our panelists, thank you very much. Hepinize iyi günler.
Teşekkürler.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much for this informative panel. And now we have 2 more panels left, and they will be we will be connecting online to our guests and speakers and moderators, and we will start soon.